Hello. Today we're going to work on IXL assignment Q2X, probability of one event. So first, let's refresh our memory on what probability is. So probability is very similar to chance. It's just a more precise way of talking about chance. So probability, chance, we discuss, what are the chances? What is the likelihood, likely, unlikely that something is going to happen. And when we talk about probability, it is typically, initially written as a fraction, but we sometimes are asked to express our answer in decimal or percent form. So if we look at this example here, we have a spinner and we want to know the probability, that's what this P stands for, of you spinning it and it landing on a purple section. And if you were to spin it, there's lots of different sections that it could land on. If we look at this, there are a total of 8 sections, and only one of them is purple. So that means it's not very likely that you're going to land on purple because only one out of 8 sections is purple. So if we look at our answers here, that's actually how you would write your probability. You could write it as a ratio, 1 to 8, as a fraction, as a decimal, or as a percent. Let's look at one more example here just to get a little bit better of an idea of how you actually write that probability. So typically you start off with writing your probability as a fraction, no matter what. And then if it does ask for you to give it in decimal or percentage form, you convert, you change your fraction into one of those forms. So the way that you set up your probability fraction, it's always going to be in this format where the numerator is your favorable outcomes. So that's kind of another way of saying what you're trying to find the probability of is your numerator. And then your denominator is the total number of outcomes. So that is the total number of possibilities that can also be referred to as your sample space. So if we look at this example, if we have a bag of marbles here and we want to find the P, we want to find the probability of you reaching your hand in and grabbing a red marble. Well, the first thing you would do is say, okay, I want the probability of red marbles. So I'm going to count and see how many red marbles there are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that becomes your numerator. Your numerator is how many chances you have of getting that specific thing. Well, there's 7 red marbles. So there are 7 possible chances you have of getting a red. And then your denominator is always the total. So we had 7 red, but we have 5 more blue, giving us a total of 12 marbles in that bag. So you have a 7 out of 12 chance of getting a red marble. And then if you wanted to turn that into a decimal or a fraction, sorry, it's already a fraction. If you wanted to turn it into a decimal or a percent, you can convert and do so. And then down here at the bottom, it shows us the probability of blue. So it's in that same format where you look at the bag, only this time we want the probability of getting a blue marble. Well, if you add them up, there are 5 blue marbles, so you have 5 chances to get that. That's your numerator. And then the denominator is the total. Well, there's 12 total marbles, 12 total options in that bag. All right, let's head on over to IXL and actually, have a chance to practice this. And then part of what we'll practice is we will work on converting to decimal and percentage form on IXL as well. All right, here we are on IXL assignment Q2X, probability of one event. And then I also have pulled up the Desmos free 4-function calculator, so that way we can use that to help us with any conversions that need to happen. All right, so our first question here says you flip a coin, and it gives us a nice little picture, and it says what is P? Remember that stands for probability, and then in parentheses is what we're trying to find the probability of. So what is the probability of you flipping that coin and it landing on tails? So when we think about a coin, one side is heads and the other side is tails. So even though it wants our answer as a percentage, we're first going to write it as a fraction, then we can convert to a percent. And you guys may already know this answer in your head. That's a-okay. Sometimes it's nice to learn how to do it when you know what the answer is going to be. And if you don't know what the answer already is in your head, no worries. Let's figure it out together. So when we have a coin here, one side's head and one is tails, and we want the probability of you flipping it and it landing on tails. Well, there's only one side of the coin that's tails, so that's going to be our numerator. And then there are two total options, two total sides to the coin. So as a fraction, 1/2 is our probability. But we want to write our answer as a percentage. There is more than one way to do this, but just so I can show it to you all at once, the way that I'm going to do it in this video is I'm going to first convert the fraction to a decimal and then take the decimal to a percent, because then we can practice all of the above at once. So whether you're using a calculator or not, the way that we turn a fraction into a decimal is by dividing. And I think the biggest thing to watch for is to make sure that you divide correctly and that you divide the numbers in the right order. Because as a fraction, that is another way of showing division. So this is telling us that we have 1 and we are dividing it by 2. So if you write it long ways, it can look like that. If you want to do the division, do long division, 1 is being divided by 2. So the 1 is on the inside and we're dividing it by 2. So that's how you would set it up if you did it long ways. Now in our calculator, we have to make sure that we enter it like this. 1 first, divided by 2, because it's the numerator being divided by the denominator. So 1 divided by 2 is 0 5/10. So that is our answer as a decimal. But of course, we really want our answer as a percent. So how do we then take a decimal and convert it to a percentage? Well, the way that we do that is we multiply by 100. Because if we think about the word percent, if we break that down, the first part of the word per means multiplication. And then the second part of the word cent means 100. If you think about it, century is 100 years, or there are 100 cents in a dollar. So per cent means per 100. So you can take a decimal and multiply by 100 and it converts it to a percent for you. So the probability of you flipping the coin and it landing on tails is a 50% chance. All right, next question. It says you pick a card at random. What is the probability of a 4? So that means what is the probability that you would pick the number 4? So the nice thing is they've kind of laid it all out for us. So if we look at our cards here, we can see that only one of the cards has a number 4 on it. So there is only one option that has the number 4. So our numerator would be a 1. And then our denominator is the total number of cards that we have. Well, there are 8 cards here. So as a fraction, our probability of picking a 4 is 1/8. But if we look at our answer choices here, we can see they're all in percentage form. So we need to convert these fractions to a percent. So if we come over to our calculator, I'm first going to turn it to a decimal. So remember, we take fractions and turn them into decimals by dividing. So numerator first, because it's 1 divided by 8, which is 0 125 thousandths. And then we can turn decimals into percents by multiplying by 100. And we get a 12.5% chance of us picking a 4. All right, how about this one? It says you roll a 6-sided die. What is the probability that it will be odd? Well, this could be something you can picture in your head. If not, kind of write it out like we did with that coin. So if we have a six-sided die, if we look at this, we can see three of the sides, but each side has a different number. So we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and each side has a different number on it. And we want the probability that you're going to have an odd number. Well, when we look at our numbers here, 1 is odd, 3 is odd, and 5 is odd. So 3 of those numbers are odd. So our numerator is going to be 3 because there are 3 opportunities. There are 3 numbers that fit that requirement that are odd. And then our denominator is the total number of options. There are 6 sides. There are 6 numbers. So 3/6 is our fraction. If we simplify this, it simplifies to be 1/2. And then we did this one earlier. This hopefully is one that eventually you can memorize. That 1/2 as a percentage would be 50%. All right, we're going to do a few more examples here together because all of them can be, slightly different. Want to make sure you get a variety. So we are told to pick a card at random, and we want the probability that it is going to be less than 3. So if we look at these, less than 3, well, the number 2 is less than 3. And then if I read it again, because it's always about reading, does it say less than or equal to 3? No, it just says less than 3. So it has to be less than, it has to be smaller than 3. So 2 is the only number less than 3. So there is only one card that fits that. And there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. So as a fraction, our probability is 1/4. This is another one that you hopefully will see enough, and maybe you can kind of connect with money to maybe have this one memorized, because if we think about it, 4 quarters make $1. But until you get, enough experience with it and just kind of memorize it, let's use the calculator here. So to turn that fraction into a decimal, we divide. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. That's how much money, a quarter is worth, because 4 quarters make up $1. And so if we multiply that by 100 to turn it into a percent, we get 25%. So there's a 25% chance that you would pick a card less than 3. All right, we'll do 2 more examples together here. So you spin the spinner once. What is P7? What is the probability that it would land on the number 7? Well, when we look at this spinner, I see only one section here has the number 7. And then there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. So as a fraction, our probability is 1/5, but we want our answer as a percent. So we come on over here. 1 divided by 5 is 0 2/10. Multiply that by 100 to turn it to a percent. We have a 20% chance. All right, I changed my mind. We're actually going to do 2 more. I want to do this one just to show you that some of them will be a percentage. All the ones we've done so far have been a percentage, which is nice. It kind of gives us that chance to practice it. But you will get some where it asks you to show the probability just in fraction form, which is how we always start. So it's not really, super different. But if you flip that coin and we want to know the probability that it lands on heads, well, only one side of the coin is heads. There are 2 possible sides, so our answer would be 1/2. So if you do get some where it asks you to just have it in fraction form, it just saves you a little bit of time and work. All right, the last example that we'll do here is once you get up into that challenge zone. So the difference is it just may, you may have to think a little bit more on this. That obviously is what's going to happen when you get into the challenge zone. But the nice thing is it still is probability. So the basics of setting up your fraction, and then if it asks you to turn it into a percentage, doing that is, the same steps here. So it says you roll a 6-sided die. what is the probability that it's a divisor of 18? Well, before I even get into this, let's list out our numbers, because especially on ones where it's a little bit more complex like this, it can be nice to have a list so you can check each possible option. So we have a die and it has the numbers 1 through 6 on it. And we want to know if it's a divisor of 18. So that means which of these numbers can we take 18 and we can divide it by? It can be a divisor. We can divide it. We can have 18 and we can divide it by that number. All right. So if we took 18 and divided it by 1, would we get a whole number? Yes, we would get the number 18. So 1 works. What about if we took 18 and divided it by 2? Yeah, that works. We get 9. How about if we took 18 and divided it by 3? That works. We get 6. So that's a divisor. What about if we took 18 and divided it by 4? I don't think that works, but we can always check in our calculator. 18 divided by 4. Nope, we get a decimal number, which means even though you can technically divide, it wouldn't be considered a divisor because those are just when you get whole number answers. So 4 doesn't work. What about if we take 18 and divide it by 5? Nope, doesn't work. What about 18 and divide it by 6? Yeah, that works. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So we just discovered that the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6 all are divisors of 18. 18 can be evenly divided by all of those numbers. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers that are divisible. 2 are not. We have a total of 6. If you want to simplify that fraction, you can. It simplifies to be 2/3. This is good chance the last one that you'll end up memorizing in time as you get more experience with it. But let's go ahead and put this in the calculator to see. So when you take 2 and divide it by 3, we get a repeating decimal. And we can see that it's repeating because that 6 just keeps going and going. But obviously the calculator can't have it go to infinity. So it just rounds at the very end up to be a 7. Well, if we come back and look at our directions here, we want to round the percentage to the nearest 10th. I'll go ahead and turn this into a percent first and then round. So unrounded, we have 66.66667. But if we want to round to the nearest 10th, remember that's the first decimal place. So we're going to look at this number to see whether we round up to a 7 or whether we round down and it stays a 6. Well, 5 and above rounds up, 4 and below rounds down. So that means we're going to round this up to 66.7% is our probability percentage that we would roll, and the number would be a divisor of 18. All right, so I hope that this video helped. Remember that IXL has a great video here that you can watch as well if you want to see a few more examples, hear it from a different perspective. But otherwise, good luck on this assignment, and if you need anything, please reach out to your teacher. Bye.